Farming+Daily+Mall System+Foundation Building+Slow, Shen Minchu realized that he was a very conscientious businessman and did a lot of charity work. Why did he create trouble and get into a car accident for no reason? He even wore it on a little girl who was trapped in love in a remote village. With the love and care of his parents and siblings, Mr. Shen expressed that she loves it very much. But no one told her that this was a year of famine, and it was also an era of tyrants in power and large-scale construction. Mr. Shen raised himself to the sky and shouted, "How can we survive in a disaster year? It's the top priority." Chapter 1. Traversing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Let's finish this meeting here for now. Our respective tasks have been clarified, and I will only look at the results by the end of the month. In the bright conference room, the elite woman in a suit and leather shoes loudly issued an ultimatum to everyone present, and everyone looked at each other. Those who were confident were naturally complacent, while those who were not confident could only look sad. Shen Minchu glanced around and took in everyone's expressions before standing up and leaving first. On the way home, Shen Minchu was driving and thinking about the dinner at night. She used to go alone, so she didn't want to drive without anyone else's knowledge. At the intersection of the elevated bridge, Shen Minchu rushed towards a van, whose overly bright high beams almost flashed. In an instant, he went blind. When the two cars collided, Shen Minchu might have been exhausted, but his final thought was. Fortunately, he didn't hire a driver. Ding dong, you have activated the mall binding system. Are you sure? If there is no response within 3 seconds, it will be automatically bound. Binding successful. The mechanical sound awakened Shen Minchu from her slumber. Before she could react, she was automatically bound to the mall system. She propped herself up with a headache-like sensation and looked around. The wooden house was leaking some light, and she looked around in the dim light. In addition to the bed, there was also an antique dressing table. Her movement startled the person lying by the bed. When the woman saw her waking up, she exclaimed in surprise, "You're clearly awake." Some sharp female voices pricked Shen Minchu's head, and she wanted her to stop shouting, but because everything was unknown at this moment, she just silently supported her forehead. She touched the bandage wrapped around her forehead, as her movement seemed to have oozed some blood. The woman panicked at the sight and quickly supported her body. At this moment, a few people came in outside the door, all dressed in coarse cloth clothes, indicating that they should be farmers. "My son. Why are you so foolish?" The mature and beautiful woman, led by Shen Minchu, rushed towards her, and her fist landed on Shen Minchu's body, soft and fluffy. She quickly reached out to catch the woman. Even if she had never met before, Shen Minchu could feel the woman's love for her. Hiss. Due to the excessive movement involving the wound on his head, perhaps due to the stagnant blood, Shen Minchu felt dizzy and the pain was severe. All right, Chu just woke up. Don't bother her anymore. Let her rest for a while, and invite a doctor to come over and take a look later." Some serious and sturdy middle-aged men interrupted the movements of several people who wanted to move forward, probably due to the head of the family. Everyone retreated according to their words, and the woman guarding her bed was also pulled by one woman and left the room 3 times in a row. Only then did Shen Minchu have the time to organize his thoughts and clarify his current situation. If you guessed correctly, she must have traveled through time. The original owner of this body, also known as Shen Minchu, had a strong personality. Due to the betrayal of her fiancé A.E., she died in public by hitting a monument, which gave her the opportunity to take advantage of the situation. From a self-made female CEO to a farmer woman, Mr. Shen said that the gap is indeed a bit large, but he feels quite relaxed in his heart. The place where the Shen family is located is called Shenjiawan, located in Shangsuan, a city in the northern part of the Great Xia dynasty. Shen's father was one of the few butchers in the 8 villages. Due to his honesty and willingness to work, he also saved a lot of wealth after dividing the family. Mother Chen is a famous beauty, but unfortunately, she was born in a remote and impoverished place. In addition to her eldest, there are also several siblings in the family. In order to gather the dowry for her younger brother's marriage, she married Shen Fu, a murderous butcher. After decades of marriage, the two of them have been playing harmoniously and have 2 sons and a daughter. The eldest son, Shen Yan, has the strength of a son and was sent to a martial arts school by the second elder to learn some skills. The second son, Shen Miaoying, has a profound understanding, so he was sent to a private school to learn some calligraphy from the old man. This year, he passed the imperial examination and has become a famous scholar and master from all over the country. Overall, it is a very harmonious and prosperous family, but unfortunately, the youngest daughter has brought a lot of troubles to this harmonious family. Shen Minchu, who was a child, was also considered a lovely Yushue, inheriting her mother's good looks. She was also intelligent and clever, and with a sweet mouth, she was very likable. When Shen Minchu was 6 years old, a family named Shi came to Shenjiawan. It was said that they were a famous wealthy family from Mingyang County outside the mountains. As having a pair of twin daughters was not conducive to their family business, they sent one to his wife's mother's house. That young lady is about the same age as Shen Minchu and used to be pampered and raised at home. So, despite crying and being unable to change the fact, she became the leader of the Shen family Bay children's group with a charming young lady style. The child who was arranged to marry Shen Minchu was Luo Jing, the son of Li Shi, a close friend of his mother Chen Shi. His father passed away early, and his mother Li Shi raised him alone. Due to his father's scholarly achievements, even if the family was poor, he still studied from a young age. Although he only became a child at the age of 15, he had already descended to the mortal world as the literary and musical star, who was on par with Shen Miao, the second brother of the Shen family, in this mountain valley. Shen Minchu knew from a young age that his future top scorer was destined to be a married couple. He relied on his hard work and willingness to send his family's surplus food to help him and his mother, but did not want to have a child in his exam. When she prepared a generous gift for him to celebrate, she broke through his private affair with the petite sister. When the young lady Jiao and the future champion said what to hire, she ran for her wife and was a concubine. She was biased because she was coming to you, so she was afraid that she could not marry off. After some shameless remarks, she ran to the Chastity Memorial Archway in front of the village and hit the monument with a bang. Shen Minchu was speechless, feeling happy to die, but completely disregarding how his family would be criticized and disturbed by the villagers. After hitting the monument, she was rescued by her family, and subsequent medical treatment also required a lot of money. Fortunately, Shen's father had been killing pigs for many years, and the Shen family still had some savings, so they found a doctor to pull her back from the gates of hell. Shen Minchu was an orphan in her previous life and was thrown into a welfare home just a few days after birth. Although the dean's grandmother felt sorry for her plight, there was no tragic background in the welfare home, and her grandmother did not have much financial resources, so she lived a difficult life. Later on, she worked hard and achieved great success. Apart from the dean's grandmother, there was no one who could enter her heart. Later, when the dean's grandmother passed away, she became even more ruthless. But after reading all the memories of the original owner, Shen Minchu was somewhat moved. There were 10 people in this family, and Shen's father was a butcher with a small amount of assets in his hands. In addition to his parents, the original owner also had 2 older brothers who complemented each other well in both literature and martial arts. In addition to being filial to his parents and diligent in their studies, Shen Minchu was genuinely fond of her youngest sister. Just now, her second sister Law, who was also her close friend, was guarding her bedside. The two of them were very close, and the sister Law and her brother fell in love with each other, showing some affection for her. In short, if this is a novel, the original owner should have taken the sweet pet script. Chapter 2. Mall System. You are listening at novelfull.audio. But with such a good family and loved ones, the original owner actually committed suicide due to a man hitting a monument. This is a bit strange. Shen Minchu tried hard to recall what happened at that time, but found that there were only sporadic memories of the headache, so he decided to give up first. At this moment, the sound of the machine just now rang in his mind. The host's shopping mall system has been successfully bound and opened. For food and fresh products, completing the task can unlock more. Shen Minchu suddenly remembered that she was awakened by mechanical sounds, the host and the system. Shen didn't know what this so-called system was, but looking at the huge shopping mall that appeared in her mind, Shen was shamefully moved. What task can unlock subsequent categories? Mr. Shen has extracted key information from his memories. The Shenjiawan where the Shen family is located is currently experiencing a drought, and there hasn't been much rain since spring. It's almost time for summer harvest and autumn planting, and I don't know if we can harvest half of the grain this year. Although Shen's identity as a butcher has made the family not yet worried about food and drink, if the drought situation is difficult to alleviate, the pork business will not continue. Moreover, the family also spent a lot of money on treating her injuries, and as she watched her financial situation gradually weaken, if she could operate the mall system well, perhaps Mr. Shen could create another glory in ancient times. But soon, Shen Minchu couldn't be happy anymore. For no other reason, the mall system had to rely on real gold and silver to unlock. For example, now she only unlocks fresh food categories. If she wants to unlock small categories such as desserts, cooked foods, etc., it can be as little as a few taels or tens of taels, and as much as tens of taels of silver. However, if she wants to unlock large categories such as daily necessities and furniture, it can range from hundreds to thousands of taels. Shen Minchu rubbed the other side of his forehead that had not been injured before, which would be a genuine headache. Fortunately, there is no way out, and the mall system not only allows for shopping, but also offers shops for Shen Minchu to choose from, which means she can also sell things. As long as her gaze was within her reach and her mind moved, she could be captured and valued by the mall. However, the currency was still the modern circulating Chinese yuan. Shen Minchu had a wild idea for a while. Maybe this mall could communicate ancient and modern times, and maybe even connect with friends from previous lives. But soon she gave up the idea, nothing else, just because the mall system had no interface for communicating messages except for buying and selling things. After roughly understanding the rules and operation methods of the shopping mall system, Shen Minchu no longer had the desire to lie down. Apart from that, in the past 2 days and 1 night of unconsciousness, she had not dripped any water, and now she was moaning incessantly. At least she had to eat something first. Turning over and getting out of bed, he opened the partially closed door. In the hall, only Chen and his 2 daughters-in-law were absent-mindedly holding the soles of their shoes. As soon as they saw her go out, they all stood up. "How did you get up? Didn't I tell you to sleep a little longer?" Chen frowned and pulled Shen Minchu's hand, asking her half heartache and half complaint. "You must be hungry. After lying down for so long, your body must be very tired." Sister-in-law Qiao and Chen share the same gentle temperament, speaking softly and softly, which makes people unable to resist feeling favorable. Seeing Shen Minchu nodded honestly, her second sister-in-law, Yushe, who was waiting for her to wake up in front of her bed, quickly pushed her to sit at the low table in the main room and wait for a while before turning around to the stove to take out the hot food placed on it. "That's all for the village. Once the food is ready, just put it on the stove and simmer it with the leftover heat from the stove. If anyone is hungry, just take it and eat it. If it's not hot, there will be leftover heat, so no one will be asked to eat cold food hungry." Eating hot buckwheat flour mantou and coarse grain congee, Shen Minchu tries to ignore the worried eyes of his mother and 2 sister-in-law who think they are secret. After she finished eating and had food in her stomach and strength on her body, she put down the dishes and slowly sorted out her thoughts, preparing to explain the current situation to them. "I've been in a coma for the past 2 days, and it's hard to deal with bad parents, siblings, and sister.in.law at home. Shen Minchu felt it was not worth it from the bottom of her heart. The memories she retained told her that her parents and siblings had held their original bodies in their palms. Who in the village has a girl who is 13 or 14 years old and has not yet landed? Although there is a butcher in the family, which is why the family is better off, the love of parents is difficult to fake. Just look at her calluses, free palms and round and smooth nails to know. So she saved her life for her original self, and she also wants to repay this kindness for her original self. Chen spoke angrily. It can be seen that after sleeping for a few days, people have also slept foolishly. They have become so separated from your parents, siblings, and sister.in.law. Xiao pursed her lips and gave a gentle smile, without speaking, but her eyes were also filled with tolerance. In such a barren mountain village, any household that encounters such an disgraceful thing would be like encountering a catastrophic disaster, but it is because of love that this small family is twisted together. Thinking about these things, Shen Minchu felt even more bitter in her heart. She envied her and felt like a thief, silently peering at the happiness that was already unattainable to her. Seeing that she was no longer troubled by the previous events, but had regained her former temperament and began to care about her family, the three of them also knew that she had finally woken up. So you comforted her with every word you said. Luo Jing and Shi Yuru, these two despicable men and women, actually hide from everyone at this meeting. Do you really think no one knows about their dirty behavior? Yu was filled with righteous indignation and cursed the two people fiercely. Chen and Xiao tacitly agreed when they saw Shen Minchu's calm demeanor. Second sister.in.law Yu's maiden name is Xiao Ying, and she has a childhood friendship with the original owner Shen Minchu. She is only 1 year older than her and is also straightforward like her. They have always talked about everything, even things that cannot be said about their mother, Chen Shi. Yu Qiaoying also knows everything about her, so she can be said to be the person who knows her best. At this moment, seeing her calm expression and knowing that she had a plan in her heart, she didn't worry anymore. At this moment, the noisy voices outside the courtyard came from far to near. Chen exchanged glances with Xiao and Yu, then stood up with their eldest daughter.in.law and walked out, while Yu stayed behind to comfort her newly awakened sister.in.law and best friend. Just now I woke up with a severe headache, and there was something in my stomach. Shen Minchu also began to calm down and think about the various things that have happened in the past few days. To put it bluntly, Luo Jing and his mother relied on the Shen family to make a living. Although Luo Jing has become a child now, as far as Shen Minchu knows, a child is not exempt from the taxes of all the elderly and young in the family's 5-server system, let alone the qualification to teach in a private school. That is to say, even if Luo Jing passes the entrance exam for Tongsheng, he will not bring any benefits to his poor and impoverished family. At most, the books copied by Tongsheng are only 1 or 2 cents more expensive than those of ordinary students. So, where did Luo Jing have the courage to tear his face from the Shen family? Is it really because of the original owner's infatuation that Luo Jing feels invincible? Shen Minchu sneered inwardly. No matter what the reason was, since she came, she would definitely not easily let go of the two people who killed the original owner. Chapter 3. Ungrateful and Ungrateful Individuals. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shen Minchu knew that his mother and sister.in.law Qiao were doing it for his own good, so he didn't compete with them for an opportunity to argue with the village ant. I roughly guessed the purpose of the newcomer and first took Yu Shi to explain the cause and effect clearly. In the surprised gaze of Yu Shi, Shen Minchu was quite satisfied with his half-true and half-false story. So, when the clamor outside the door seemed to increase instead of decrease, he stood up and walked out. The same group of rural women from the same family, who were whispering in a warm voice, explained that their sister.in.law was not feeling well and it was difficult to see guests. They saw her standing in the courtyard with a pale face. Thank you all for your concern. A few days ago, I accidentally walked and broke my head. Now I'm much better. Xiao was about to say something when she saw her sister.in.law use dazed gaze reaching out to her, and she calmed down with her mother.in.law Chen. Shen Minchu clearly had a plan in mind, so they didn't have to worry. The women saw that although Shen Minchu had a pale face, her waist and back were straight and elegant, and the wound wrapped around her forehead did not damage her complexion. They were momentarily hesitant due to their own gossip anxiety. Those who have a good heart or are friendly with the Shen family remind Shen Minchu not to take a shower, so as not to leave scars on the wound. They also hide their gossip thoughts, and Shen Minchu smiles and responds one by one, calling people according to memory. There were also some complicated matters. Seeing that she not only did not feel sad about this matter, but also stood up to the public's pointing, it was unclear whether it was intentional or unintentional provocation for a moment. Luo Tongsheng and Miss Shi were originally talented and beautiful. One day, Miss Shi returned home with the support of Shen Yuanwei, the wealthiest father.in.law in Mingyang County. It's hard to say that Luo Tongsheng soon became the talented Luo Jiren. It's clear that you are so strong that you have to offend others. If you go early to subdue someone, you won't be troubled by the master of the imperial examination. Shen Minchu was about to be laughed at in anger, but she knew that such arguments were meaningless. Shen family village is under the jurisdiction of Mingyang County, Xianyang County. Miss Shi Yuru's biological father is the richest man in Mingyang County. As the family has property, it is the lowest level merchant. Therefore, Shen's richest man spent money to donate an official position as an 8th rank official in the early years. He said that the official position was just a title, just to break away from the merchant's identity. However, it should be noted that since ancient times, money and power have been integrated, and the villagers should be very respectful of this wealthy merchant. In her past life, Shen Minchu grew up in an orphanage and did not have many ways of entertainment. In her daily life, she not only helped the dean's grandmother with work, but also hid in a book corner to read. As a result, she developed a habit of loving reading and learning, and accumulated a lot of fragmented knowledge. I remember a chapter in a historical book from a previous life specifically recorded the ancient imperial examination system, and Shen Minchu then carefully recalled it. Those who participated in the county examination presided over by the magistrate of Xianyang County and passed it, like Luo Jing, were generally referred to as Tongsheng. They were said to have achieved fame, but in fact, they were just slightly stronger scholars. In addition, there were also scholars, jiren, tribute students, and so on. The road to the imperial examination was long. Not to mention that Luo Jing is still far from becoming a master of the imperial examination, but her second brother is already a scholar who does not kneel before an official. Will she be afraid of the 8th grade Yuanweilang donated by a local merchant outside Shen Yuanwei, just because she is currently in the mall system? Shen Minchu smiled lightly, standing tall in the courtyard like a small poplar tree, his eyes clear, and the malicious talkative person looked a bit shy. Auntie's words are so clear that I can't understand them. Uncle Luo passed away young, and our Shen family has also helped a lot. Aunt Li still cares about the love that our Shen family has been taking care of for many years. Does Luo Tongsheng have to fight for fame and become that ungrateful person? If there are similarities between Mr. Shen and the original owner, they both have a mouth that can kill living people and a personality that is not afraid of heaven and earth. At school, teasing her teenage classmates who have no parents is much more malicious than these aunties. At least the women in the village, although their mouths are broken, still have the most basic care for the relationship between neighbors. The old woman was mocked by what she said, and everyone saw that Shen Minchu was not a big deal, and there was no intention of making jokes. It happened to be time to cook dinner, and a few jokes dissipated. Shen Minchu and his mother's sister.in.law went back to the room. She and the three of them were all busy preparing dinner, but they didn't let Shen Minchu interfere. Mr. Shen had to go back to the room and just took advantage of this time to consider the use of the mall. Just as she was considering how to start her own fresh food category, which was only open to her now. In the year of drought, Shen's father walked in from outside the door. With a flash of inspiration, Shen Minchu couldn't help but forget about it. "Why did you come back so early today?" Chen saw Shen's father returning and quickly welcomed him. Shen's father has some regular customers in the town, delivering meat every day. At other times, he kills pigs and sells meat at gatherings in various villages. Although it's not selling meat in the town every day, the skewers from all over the town are coming back early today. It's just that we're about to leave the market, and it takes time to travel on the way. It's evident that the business at the market is not good, and there aren't many people buying and selling. When Shen Fu saw his wife, his frustration instantly turned into sorrow. Facing her worried water eyes, his heart felt a bit sour. He handed the meat in his hand to Chen Shi. "The pigs were not sold out today, so I split up with Tai Xuan. His mother knows how to make cured meat and will send us some when it's ready. I will send the rest to our old house. After discussing with Tai Xuan, I will only receive one pig every day. Some of the old customers in the town come to buy meat every day, so they always have to care about their family's sales. It's time for summer harvest in a few days, and when they get busy, they can't afford to kill pigs." Upon hearing this, Chen knew that her husband's words contained elements of comfort, which made her feel a bit disappointed. However, she still forced herself to turn around and comfort him. "There is still surplus food at home, so you don't have to worry too much." Shen's father knew that his wife was worried about him, so he silently nodded and changed into clean clothes to fetch water. Shenjiawan is located at the outermost corner of Xianyang County, and after 100 miles of barren land, it becomes Sanshui County. It is situated halfway up the mountain, and although the terrain is not very high, it is also not adjacent to water. Therefore, for household water use, they have to go to several wells drilled in the village to fetch water. The Shen Yan and Shen Miao brothers are both in the martial arts school in the town, so Shen's father took on the responsibility of carrying water at home, sometimes only once a day. The water tank at home is always full. Shen Minchu listened carefully to what the two of them were saying inside the house. Shen's father's pork couldn't be sold out, but she had a way to solve it. Her mall could recycle all of it, but this was not a long-term solution. One reason is that if the mall were to acquire, the money gained would not be significant. More importantly, this would not solve the problem and would only cultivate Shen Minchu's personality of relying too much on the mall. In her past life, she also read novels to pass the time in her spare time after working. Naturally, she knew that these 10 travel novels and 9 pork dishes were the first step to getting rich. Making braised dishes can be said to be the first step. And as far as she knows, although the current Great Xia dynasty did not exist in history, its historical process is not far from that of the past. In terms of cooking, it can be said that it is extremely simple, and it will take at least 100 years to have the method of frying and frying. Chapter 4. Liu Niangzi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It is not difficult to deal with the current situation by turning unsold pork into cooked food, coupled with the fancy variety of fresh produce in her mall. The only thing that worries Shen Minchu a bit is the various seasonings needed to make braised dishes, which seem to have not yet appeared. She can actually take them out of the mall, but what kind of plan does she have for this? Shen Minchu was worried on this side, so Chen Shi came in with a curtain and called for her to eat. She couldn't remember the best solution for a while, so she had to put it aside and discuss it later. Farmers usually don't have any leisure activities. After eating, they just stroll around the fields. Nowadays, due to the drought, the people have no other choice. As Shen Minchu walked along, the villagers looked at the withered wheat and cried uncontrollably. She was also extremely frustrated in her heart. Now that she was pregnant with a system and had broken through 10,000 books in modern times, she should have tried her best to turn the tide, but unfortunately, she did not understand the people's livelihood and was at a loss now, feeling overwhelmed. As it was getting late, the whole family cleaned up and went to bed with their own thoughts in mind, speechless all night. The next morning, at dawn, Shen's father packed his bags and went out. The meat business had not been settled for a day, so he could not open for a day. Seeing that the grain in the field was bound to fail this year, the whole family had to rely on him as the pillar of support. How could he take a break? Shen Minchu realized that she had the method to solve her difficulties, but she was powerless in the situation. She couldn't even take a few bites of breakfast. Shen only thought that her injury had not healed and she had no appetite, so she didn't force her. She only advised her to stay at home and rest well for 100 days without doing any work. Shen Minchu realized that he was not of much help to the family, so he helped Yusher wash clothes and took the opportunity to inquire about the current situation of farmers. Shen sat on the side with his insoles, and when he saw the two of them washing and drying their clothes, he pulled them into the room, as if they had something to say. At that time, you were clearly injured, but it was Liu Niangzi from the village who discovered and saved you. They saved you and carried you back, leaving without taking a penny. Our family has been busy taking care of you these past few days, and we haven't thanked them properly. My mother always feels uncomfortable in her heart. Today, when you have time, you can go to the village and bring half a pound of brown sugar to Liu Niangzi. We also need to explain to them that if we can be relatives in the future, it will be a good thing for our family. Upon hearing this, you smiled and said, "No, Mrs. Liu can be considered half the backbone of the women in our village." Upon hearing this, Shen Minchu carefully recalled the story of Lady Liu in this room. It can be said that Lady Liu is also a strange woman. Earlier, just 1 year after her wedding, she encountered war and her husband went to join the army, but he never returned and did not leave a son or a half for her. Unfortunately, she is a capable person who usually embroiders some handkerchiefs, collects some eggs, and sells them in the town. At first, there were some gossip in the village, thinking that she was just a little daughter-in-law showing off, but she no longer has close relatives at home, so she doesn't care about the gossip of others. After a small business day by day, she lived a good life. Even in the current year of famine, she didn't worry much about her livelihood. Many people also advised her to remarry and talk to her about marriage, but she refused each one and said she wanted to keep her husband. It has been 3 or 4 years now, and even the prefect's wife has come to see her several times in admiration. Since then, she has become half the backbone of the women in the village, and even when there is a big or small matter in the village, she will discuss it with this woman with a different surname. Chen's statement is correct. If it were due to the grace of saving lives, it would be a good thing for the Shen family to be able to associate with Lady Liu as a relative. Shen Minchu thought for a moment and realized that she was not interested in chaste and virtuous women, but she greatly admired Liu Niangzi's strong character and her life-saving relationship. She was really happy to go on a trip. After making up his mind to eat, Shen Minchu took advantage of the early morning and before lunchtime, picked up half a pound of brown sugar brought by Chen and walked towards the village entrance. The road in the village was a bit bumpy, but it wasn't too far. After walking for half a quarter of an hour, they arrived at Liu Niangzi's house. Shen Minchu walked forward and lightly knocked on the firewood door, and only with permission did he enter the courtyard. Liu Niangzi was sitting in the yard embroidering a handkerchief. Taking the handkerchief to the town to exchange things was also one of her means of making a living. At this moment, when someone came, she raised her head and smiled at Shen Minchu. Shen Minchu's heart was instantly stunned. The original owner had little contact with Lady Liu in the past, and only had a fleeting impression when there was something in the village. Therefore, she did not notice that Lady Liu had a good color. Under the curved eyebrows, there were a pair of fox eyes, sparkling with water. Although the skin color was not snow-white, it was delicate and smooth. Judging from age, it was about the same as Qiao's, a bit less dignified and elegant than Qiao's, but it had a certain elegance and elegance. If placed in the eyes of modern people's aesthetics, this would be a restless and coquettish appearance. However, in the eyes of Mr. Shen, a future person who has undergone multiple modern aesthetic training, Such a color is on par with his famous beautiful mother and two iconic sister.in.law. I came today to express my gratitude to Lady Liu for saving her life that day. I will remember her great kindness and hope to be closer to Lady Liu and repay her kindness in the future. Shen Minchu slightly bent down and bowed. This etiquette was disrespectful to her, causing Liu Niangzi to cover her lips and smile lightly, gesturing for her to sit next to her and talk. Shen Minchu walked forward with some embarrassment. Mr. Shen was not tired of other people's kind jokes, to the point where he felt that Lady Liu had a straightforward personality and that the praise from others was true. I didn't do anything, it was just a matter of convenience. It was your mother who cried so much that day. I've heard about everything. You used to be smart and capable, but this time I found out that you're also a fool. Liu Niangzi gently patted the back of Shen Minchu's hand placed on her knee, indicating a sense of closeness. Shen Minchu felt a bit shy. The foolish things that the original owner had done, as a foreigner who had taken advantage of others and was able to revive the world, could not be evaluated. However, she could not ignore the teachings of the elders. Liu Niangzi's lesson was that when I woke up and saw my parents and sister.in.law working hard for me, Chuchu's heart was also very uncomfortable. Therefore, I want to thank Liu Niangzi even more for giving me another opportunity to repay my parents' love. Liu Niangzi took her hand and spoke softly, "My name is Chuiying. You should be 2 years younger than my sister. You can call me Xing sister." Shen Minchu's heart was filled with joy, and he immediately obediently changed his words. "Sister Chuiying." Mrs. Liu gave a low response and silently patted her hand, which left Shen Minchu somewhat puzzled. She remembers that in the past, she had no contact with this Liu Niangzi. Now that Liu Niangzi can be said to be the #1 figure in the Shen family village and has saved her life, why should she lower her profile and associate with her like this? Is it because she has other intentions? That also needs to be explained clearly, so that she won't be confused and will remember how to repay her kindness in her heart. Chapter 5. Sisters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just now I heard Liu Niangzi mention her younger sister at home, but I never heard of any relatives coming and going in Liu Niangzi's family in the past. Shen Minchu tentatively spoke up, seeing that Lady Liu was becoming increasingly silent and her watery eyes were also somewhat dim. He felt a certain feeling in his heart, and then saw Lady Liu speak up. "Yes, my parents passed away early, and my relatives have gradually become less mobile. There is only me and my sister at home. A few years ago, my sister also had an accident, and now I am the only one left." Shen Minchu was shocked to find that she was so reckless and had poked Empress Liu's sadness. This, blame me, Chuiying sister, please blame me, just don't be sad." Liu Chuiying looked up at her and was amused by her reaction, making her chuckle. "Silly girl, it's already a thing of the past, you don't have to blame yourself." Mrs. Liu lowered her head and looked at the wild flowers by the wall, her expression seeming reminiscent. "At that time, I was addicted to the news of my husband's death, unable to extricate myself. I didn't notice that she was daydreaming every day. It turned out that he was selling embroidery products for me in town when he was deceived by a scholar who cheated her of her money under the pretext of rushing for exams. And when I saw her again, she lay there cold all over, no matter how I called her, she refused to open her eyes and call me sister. Liu Chuiying's eyes were moist, and her voice was hoarse due to choking in her throat. Shen Minchu was greatly shocked. She didn't expect such a reason to exist. No wonder Lady Liu tried her best to save her. It turned out she had been thinking about such a scene in her heart for 3 years. "At that time, I saw you under the stone tablet, and you were covered in blood all over your head and face. I just felt that your appearance was very similar to my sister's. I didn't know where I came from, so I walked a few miles on your back." Liu Chuiying couldn't help but bend her lips, but the tears in her eyes could no longer stop. Tears as big as beans streamed down, and Shen Minchu tightly grasped Liu Niangzi's hand, causing her to choke. Sister, sister. It's all my fault. Talking about my sister's sadness. 1,000 words choked up in her heart. Shen Minchu remembered her petty heart just now, thinking that Lady Liu was trying to blackmail her for kindness and wanted to slap herself in the face. Liu Niangzi didn't blame her. She waved her hand to wipe away her tears, but tears were like broken pearls, big beans falling down with a snap. Shen Minchu held Lu Chueying's hand and his eyes turned red. From now on, Chueying will treat me as her own sister and only let me repay the kindness of raising and saving her life on her behalf. Liu Niangzi could no longer resist and embraced Shen Minchu in her arms, continuously pounding her back with her powder fists and sobbing uncontrollably. Idiot! Idiot! My Yueying! Why don't you want to look at your sister again? How could your sister dislike you? Yueying. The continuous crying was like a nightingale crying blood, heartbreaking and heartbreaking. Shen Minchu tightly hugged Chueying's waist and back. She remembered her grandmother, the dean of the previous life, who had held her hand tightly before her death, leaving her hands devoid of blood. The dean's grandmother said that she has the strongest personality and worries the most about her, but the proudest child is also her, just afraid that she will suffer alone after her grandmother leaves. In a daze, she seemed to have seen the dean's grandmother, as well as the dead Liu Yueying in the original owner. At this moment, they were all relieved and told her together with Liu Chueying. Choo-choo, the past has become a cloud of smoke. Even if the road ahead is bumpy, my sister, parents, siblings will accompany you. The two sisters held their heads together and wept bitterly. They went back to the room to dress up. Then they sat in the courtyard again and talked. When they faced each other's swollen almond stone eyes, they were both embarrassed. Liu Chueying felt a little sad. Since my husband and Yueying left, my heart has been as proud as iron. I used to think that you, a girl, had some eye contact, and I really had a connection between you and me. Shen Minchu smiled slightly. Liu Niangzi was worried about her deceased sister, which was why she saved her life. She had always avoided deep communication, but today she has become intimate with Liu Niangzi. If it weren't for my sister, where could I have had my life? It shows that there is a destined fate. I used to only have 2 brothers, but now I am fortunate enough to have another good sister. Liu Niangzi smiled slightly, feeling that she had some fate with this girl. When she heard that she was capable and hardworking, she had also paid some attention. If she could really help each other out, it would also be considered that this outsider could have a foothold in Shenjiawan. But in the future, as she showed great concern for the scholar surnamed Luo, sometimes she felt like her own silly sister. Unexpectedly, with this careful attention, she had a fate to save her life. This girl's life should not be lost, and she also accumulated virtue, hoping that the gods and Buddhas in the sky could see her kindness and plan a good future for her sister and husband. The 2 sisters laughed and talked for a while before they could cover up their grief. Shen Minchu turned to another thing. I heard from my parents that my sister used to come and go to the village in the town, but now she has something to ask for her help with. Shen Minchu pondered for a moment and spoke up. If what she had in mind could be accomplished, perhaps it would be a good thing to be with Lady Liu. Liu Niangzi smiled and said, "You girl, you just said I'm your sister, and now you're going to use the word beg. It shows that you're not sincere in recognizing your sister. What kind of sister are you calling? Just call me Liu Niangzi." Shen Minchu knew that Chueying was joking with her, so he quickly pulled her sleeve and apologized, "I was wrong. Sister, please spare me this time, I dare not have another time." Mrs. Liu wouldn't argue with her, just let her explain the whole situation in detail. Originally, Shen Minchu wanted to go to the town and see if there was a way for her to reasonably take out the things in this mall. However, because she rarely went to the town before and had just had an accident, she was afraid that her parents would not be at ease, so she wanted to entrust Liu Niangzi to take her with her when she went to the town. Liu Niangzi smiled and said, "What's the difficulty? I'm going to town tomorrow. You can come with me. I always ride Uncle Zhao He's ox cart. If you go back today, tidy up and come early tomorrow." The sisters discussed the time of tomorrow, and Shen Minchu got up to leave. Now she is also at home to cook lunch. If she stays, Chen Shi will say something rude when she comes home. When she returned home, she had indeed started preparing lunch. Chen breathed a sigh of relief when she saw that she knew she couldn't stay at home to eat. Nowadays, in the year of famine, every family is not easy. Upon seeing her return, Xiao and Yu persuaded Chen out of the kitchen, and the mother and daughter joined hands and entered the room to talk. Upon hearing Shen Minchu talk about Liu Niangzi's past, Chen couldn't help but shed a tear. Shen Jiawan was not very big, and everyone knew a little about each other's affairs. She only knew that Liu Niangzi's sister passed away at an early age inexplicably, and felt regretful. Now that she knew this reason, she couldn't help but sigh and let out a sigh that the hemp rope was carefully cut, and her bad luck had all turned to the unfortunate person. After Chen withdrew her tears, Shen Minchu finally mentioned that she would go to town with Liu Niangzi tomorrow. After hesitating for a moment, Chen agreed to Shen Minchu's persuasion. For some reason, she always felt that her daughter had changed a lot after experiencing a setback. Although she used to have a strong personality, now her ideas have become very positive and she loves to talk more to her mother. Chapter 6. Dowry. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shen Minchu was instructed to prepare in advance for tomorrow's trip to the town, and the two sisters-in-law, Xiang, had their lunch ready. Yu came into the room and called for them to eat. When she heard that Shen Minchu was going to town the next day, she asked her to take the handkerchief embroidered by the two sisters-in-law to the town and ask if anyone could accept it. Naturally, Shen Minchu did not hesitate. The Shen family really has a solid family background. Even in this drought year, the Shen family relies on their father's identity as a butcher to eat meat every 3 to 2 days. Shen Minchu let out a sigh in her heart. She had already eaten cold pork liver last night, and today there is another dish of dried radish stewed meat on the table, indicating that Shen's father's meat stall is becoming increasingly worried about selling. It seems that she needs to speed up the preparations. After dinner, the two sister-in-law brought their embroidered handkerchiefs to Shen Minchu. Shen Minchu couldn't help but brighten his eyes. Xiao Shi was gentle and elegant, with her own demeanor. The stitches on the embroidered handkerchiefs were fine and the workmanship was exquisite. However, Yu Shi, who had the same chilly temperament as the original owner, also had her own ingenuity. The patterns embroidered were even loved by modern people like her. Shen Minchu couldn't help but admire again. The life of the Shen family is not bad at first sight. The two sons study and practice martial arts, and the two daughter-in-law are also clever and skilled. The most rare thing is that the family is harmonious and beautiful, each shining brightly. There is no conflict between mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, and sister-in-law. Why worry about not living well? My sister-in-law and sister-in-law have such great craftsmanship that they can definitely sell for a good price in town. Shen Minchu praised them repeatedly, but unfortunately, these handkerchiefs were embroidered from the scraps of cloth left over from making clothes at home. If we use some good materials, I'm afraid we won't have to worry about selling them. Xiao and Yu were embarrassed when she praised her, and they all laughed and scolded her as a monkey, while the three of them laughed and didn't mention it. After staying up late at night, Shen Minchu carefully tidied up the original owner's dowry, hoping to exchange some more money with them all. It was said to be a dowry, but in fact, it was just a small wooden box made by Shen's father for her. The original owner saw Shi Yuru and insisted that Shen's father make it. Shen Minchu caressed the patterns carved on the wooden box, afraid of fading, and even applied a thin layer of tung oil, indicating Shen's father's compassion for his daughter. The Shen family is also considered a small wealthy family in the village. In the early years, Shen's father wanted to become a butcher, but the Shen family did not agree and said it was a business with too much killing intent. However, in order to make money, Shen's father resolutely went to the town to learn pig killing from his master. Over the years, I have accumulated some wealth, and the youngest and only daughter of the original owner naturally enjoyed the most blessings. There are only a few pieces of jewelry in the dowry, including a small silver lock that was specially made by Shen's father and mother to pray for the safety of their little daughter when they were young. It weighs half a double, and there are also a few wooden hairpins left, some carved by Shen's father and some carved by his two brothers for the original owner. Shen Minchu felt the love from her family and elders from this dowry, whispering softly to the void. "Chu, leave with peace of mind, I will repay this love for you." In the dark, she only felt something slowly relaxing in her heart. Tonight, the stars twinkled, as if she was looking at her old friend from afar. Shen Minchu collected all the gifts from her parents and brothers. She found out the hidden and pocket money that the original owner had saved over the years. The total amount of pocket money was over 451, and the rest was taken by the original owner to buy books for Luo Jing. Shen Minchu picked up one of the few hairpins that Luo Jing had given to the original owner and asked the mall how much they could sell for. The product was found to be carved from willow trees, with rough workmanship and inferior material. The estimated cost is 20 yuan. Shen Minchu wanted to vomit blood. The book that the original owner bought for Luo Jing was a cheap handwritten copy of more than 10 yuan, and some printed copies even cost 40 or 50 yuan. You should know that 50 yuan is already enough to buy a bucket of polished rice. After all these years, Luo Jing only gave away such a light and flowing wooden hairpin. She is really not worth it for the original owner. The interaction between people cannot be solely measured by economics, but the unequal efforts ultimately result in the other party's contempt, which can be seen only from the experiences of the original owner. After all these years of hard work and dedication, it only resulted in a white-eyed wolf that was not well bred, and even ridiculed the original owner, indirectly leading to his death. Shen Minchu put the wooden hairpin back into the dowry, which can be said to be a witness of the past relationship between Luo Jing and the original owner. It is better to return it to Luo Jing when there is a chance in the future, as if it is to settle the matter for the original owner. Shen Minchu estimated that over 400 yuan would be enough, but if not, she still has a shopping mall as a backup. In the eyes of Mr. Shen in his previous life, it was just a hot pot meal. But now, in his opinion, it is a meticulous calculation for every article, and it can also set up a lot of startup funds for industries. The next day, Shen Minchu put the handkerchiefs embroidered by her two sister.in.law and the over 400 tattoos saved by the original owner into a bamboo basket, carrying a large bamboo basket that did not match her body. They paid 2 yuan for the fare together with Liu Niangzi and got on Zhao He's ox cart. Accompanied by others from the village, the group walked unsteadily towards the town. Over a dozen miles of mountain road, the ox cart walked unsteadily for almost an hour. It set off at dawn and arrived in the town. It was already daylight, and Zhao He parked the cart at the entrance of the town. He instructed everyone to gather here before the end of the afternoon, and to rush back to the village before dark. Shen Minchu and Liu Niangzi walked together to the market in the town, and Shen Minchu paid special attention to several restaurants in the town. It's not raining this year, and in fact, the only villages on the mountains that have suffered the most are Shenjiawan. Because it's not close to the water source, watering and irrigation are very difficult. I heard that the south has suffered from waterlogging, which is even more difficult than their side. The business of several restaurants in the town is quite good. Although there are fewer ordinary people coming, there are also some scholars and wealthy businessmen who come. On the surface, it still looks like a peaceful and carefree atmosphere. Sister, hurry up first. I'll go around and see if I can buy what I want. Let's meet here before noon. Shen Minchu looked up and pointed to the sign of the restaurant in front of him, Drunk Heavenly Fragrance. Cui Ying hesitated a bit and said, "You just need to wait for me for a while, and I'll handle my affairs here. I'll accompany you wherever you're going. Shen Minchu smiled and said, I'm so grown up, can I still lose it? After finishing speaking, he felt a bit embarrassed and said, and I don't come to town often. I want to go around more. Sister, don't worry, I won't go far. We'll meet here before noon. Chuiying knew that she was still childish, so she shook her head helplessly and agreed. She took her hand and carefully warned, don't run around, don't talk to strangers when they talk to you, take care of your belongings, and watch the sky come over quickly. Don't worry. Shen Minchu felt an indescribable warmth in his heart and responded one by one. To see Chuiying leave, Shen Minchu also intensified his efforts to handle his own affairs. She turned around and entered a shop selling embroidered clothing. Last night, she had already asked the mall to estimate the price of the handkerchiefs embroidered by her two sister.in.law, and she probably had a bottom line in her mind. The embroidery work is decent, but the materials used are not good enough. The girl also knows that the current year is not good. This kind of object that ladies only use is exquisite. I can only give you 5 won per piece. Chapter 7. Buying Chicken and Duck Seedlings. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The shopkeeper's expression of embarrassment did not seem to be hypocritical. Shen Minchu had already inquired with Lady Liu, and the shopkeeper of this shop was quite kind, indicating that this handkerchief was truly worthless. Shen Minchu didn't bother either, so he thanked the boss and took back his handkerchief. It seemed that relying on embroidery workers to support the family was difficult to sustain at the moment. Fortunately, she still had a shopping mall to purchase these items. After leaving the shop, Shen Minchu turned into the back alley of a street and traded embroidered handkerchiefs with the mall, each costing 30 won. 6 handkerchiefs were exchanged for 180 won. Shen Minchu turned back to the shop with this 180 won and took out another 30 won to buy fully colored embroidery thread, as well as a few sets of red embroidered samples, using the original owner's private money. She wrapped up the things she bought and put them in her backpack basket. In her past life, tens of thousands of donkeys and horses cannot compare to the practicality of this large bamboo basket. The bustling market street had many branching roads, and with a strong sense of direction, Shen Minchu turned around many places. Sure enough, at the intersection of a back alley, he saw an old woman with chattering sounds coming from the bamboo basket in front of him. Shen Minchu stepped forward to inquire about the selling price. Grandma, what are you selling here? There are chickens and ducks, they are all healthy and healthy. Girl, you can feed any millet or bran you like when you go home, and you can lay eggs in 2 months. The old woman warmly waved her hand, gesturing for Shen Minchu to look over. She had already shed a layer of fuzz, and now her body was covered in 2 baskets of yellow ducks and chicks. Her soft beaks brushed each other's fur, and roughly there were about 10 of them each. How do you sell this, mother.in.law? Shen Minchu glanced at him with a lack of interest, his face looking uninterested. Chicken cubs are worth 10 won, and duck cubs are worth 15 won each. You can choose any male or female one, and I can give you a cheaper one. How many do you want, girl? This is too expensive. Shen Minchu almost jumped up. This kid is still so young. How much food will he need to eat when he goes back? Grandma, you should give me a genuine price, otherwise I won't buy it and I can save some food. Oh, you girl, why is this so expensive? It's been like this for so many years. The old woman also felt a bit guilty. She had seen this girl with a tender face, but she didn't expect her to be difficult to get along with. If it's true as my mother.in.law said, this price will be even more expensive. Our villager's current annual income is not good, and there is no extra money to buy this long-mouthed thing back. Forget it, I won't buy it anymore. Shen Minchu spoke and pretended to leave. The old woman became anxious at first sight and quickly waved to stop her. Hey, you girl, this business has some dealings. I told you the price, but you don't agree. Just tell me the price and I'll listen to it. Shen Minchu pretended to hesitate, making the old woman even more anxious. Let's do it this way, whether it's male or female, a chicken cub with 6-1, or a duck cub with 9-1. If it works, I'll take them all. Now it's the old woman's turn to jump and say, why are you shouting prices so recklessly? You just cut me so much in one go. Shen Minchu also put on a rolling knife-like appearance, flipping his eyes without saying a word. The old woman endured the pain and said, you add more. I've been raising it for several months now, and I have to earn back this money. Upon hearing this, Shen Minchu glanced at the old woman's stall and saw her looking over. The old woman had widened the opening of several of her cloth bags. Shen Minchu's eyes flickered as he saw the situation. It turned out that these few cloth pockets were filled with some of the large ingredients that Shen Minchu needed to make braised dishes. He withdrew his surprise from his eyes and pointed to several cloth bags, saying, then I'll add one more article each. Can Grandma give me this bag of dry ingredients? The woman was taken aback. These dry ingredients were originally casually planted by the wall of the courtyard, and after they had matured and fallen off, no one took care of them. Some of them had already dried in the sun when she found them. She smelled a strange aroma and gathered them all up. She had just taken them to the market to try her luck, but she didn't expect them to come in handy here. The old woman also looked sore, raised her hand to tidy up the things on the stall, and replied, you girl, you really know how to plan carefully. These spices are extremely rare. I see you have a good eye, so I'll give them to you as a gift. Shen Minchu put on a smile again and took out a money bag from the bamboo basket, counting the money and handing it over to the old lady. Grandma, it's not that I deliberately lowered the price. Take a look at my money bag. After paying, there are only a few copper coins left. If I don't plan carefully, I won't have money to give you then. Isn't it even more annoying? The old woman was made to burst into laughter by her, and the slightest displeasure dissipated. She also gave her a basket of chickens and ducks as a gift. With the help of the old woman, Shen Minchu stuffed 2 baskets into his backpack and held one in his arms. He hurriedly bid farewell and headed towards drunken Tianxiang. Shen Minchu's purchase of chicken and duck today was not a last-minute initiative, but a carefully considered decision. For the villagers today, the most precious foods to eat are sugar and eggs, which are used to supplement the strength of the farmers. Eggs, ducks, and eggs are sold without worries. Hens are used to lay eggs, while roosters can be used to kill and eat meat after breeding. Even in the mall, the meat prices of ground chickens, local chickens, and feed chickens are divided into different levels. Now that she lives and eats in the village, how can she miss such a good path to wealth? It was still early, just a moment before noon. However, Lu Chuiying was already waiting at the entrance of Zui Tianxiang. Shen Minchu quickly hugged the bamboo basket and ran over. When Chuiying saw it, she quickly waved to signal her to slow down. Girls from all walks of life are so reckless, Lu Chuiying said angrily, while Shen Minchu awkwardly smiled. She had not yet gotten used to the ancient identity, and her carefree personality was nothing in the village, but she was somewhat unrestrained when sitting and lying. I'm afraid my sister will wait for a long time, but I won't be able to do it in the future. Lu Chuiying pointed at her helplessly, but couldn't say anything to blame. Both sisters are good at money, and they don't eat hard food. Empress Lu took out the money for selling eggs today to invite Shen Minchu to eat a bowl of wonton. Shen Minchu didn't want to accept it. She spent more than 200 when buying chicken and duck seedlings, but now there are still more than 100 when left. It's nothing to ask Empress Lu to eat. But Empress Lu held her back when she paid for the money. If she wanted to open her mouth, she was also blocked by an elder sister who couldn't take her sister's turn to eat. After dinner, the two of them didn't separate. Liu Niangzi took Shen Minchu to stroll around the restaurants and stalls that she was interested in. As she expected, there were not many diverse cooking methods yet. The fragrant vegetable oil was also used for medicine, and the oil extracted from meat was also used for frying pancakes. And the dried ingredients such as star anise Sichuan pepper have been around for a long time, but they are still medicinal and have not been used in the cooking process yet. Shen Minchu couldn't help but want to showcase her skills in the culinary industry, but she is really a conductor who only knows how to talk on paper. This matter. Let's discuss it later. The sisters strolled around the town for half an afternoon, then strolled to Zenzaku. It was still early and Zhao River had not arrived yet. Due to the poor annual performance in the area, many strong laborers from the village come to the town to do some physical work, whether it is carrying large bags of goods for people in the town or doing some small jobs, which are important ways to subsidize household expenses. Shen Minchu couldn't help but sigh. In fact, she was already lucky enough. Dad has the ability to make money, and even in times of famine, the whole family cannot go hungry. Big brother is studying martial arts and has inherited some of Shen's father's strength, which is also considered a natural talent. Now he is a disciple. The martial arts school offers free meals and accommodation, as well as monthly silver withdrawals. My second brother is a scholar, so even if the harvest is not good at home, there is no need to worry, at least there is no need to consider the issue of taxation. Chapter 8. Aquaculture Plan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shen Minchu couldn't help but sigh in his heart. At present, it seems that she is many times luckier than those women of her age who still work hard to scrape food in the field, as well as women who cannot afford to eat at home and exchange it for money and food. Although there are some difficult passes at the moment, the whole family can work together and get by. While sisters were waiting in Zenzaku, Shen Minchu did not forget to look at the residents coming and going. There were many old farmers in the town who were selling vegetables at stalls, including leek, amaranth, cucumbers and pumpkins, which were good crops for growing and harvesting. These crops are not lacking in farmers, and some villagers even exchange different crops planted in their own homes with others, so it is difficult to get a good selling price. However, for these elderly people, the most important thing is not to earn a lot of money, barely supporting their families. The two sisters didn't wait long. He drove a bullock cart to Zenzaku with people who were going to work together. The villagers arrived after a long wait. Everyone didn't want to be the one who dragged everyone down, so it was agreed that after the end of the Shinshu gathering, everyone Shinshu had already set out on the return journey in a wobbly manner. No one said anything along the way, a heavy sadness locked between everyone's eyebrows, unable to shake it off. The price of grain in the town has changed again, with rice rising from 21 to 25 won, and corn and white flour each rising by 5 won. This is good for farmers who are about to harvest in autumn, but not for the villagers of Shenjiawan who have not eased the drought. Everyone was speechless all the way, and when they arrived at the village entrance, Shen Minchu and Liu Niangzi jumped off the carriage and broke up and went home. She had to quickly settle the matter of raising chickens and ducks. The chickens and ducks were also kept in the bamboo basket for a long time, and she was terrifyingly tight. Returning home, Chen quickly welcomed her and was surprised to see her in big and small bags. She quickly helped her unload the bamboo basket and saw the lively chatter of chicken and duck seedlings inside. Shen Minchu breathed a sigh of relief, but Chen felt inexplicable. What are you doing with buying so many chicken and duck seedlings? Shen Minchu teased the chicken and duck seedlings while checking their survival rate, and smiled at Chen Shi, saying, I heard from Sister Chuiying that eggs are selling well now, and the village is in short supply. I happened to see some cheap ones in the town, and I saw that the mother.in.law was pitiful, so I bought a lot. My mother can rest assured that all the money was from my private house silver. I have saved the money for the two sister.in.laws selling embroidered handkerchiefs. Upon hearing this, Xiao and Yu also walked out of the room, feeling inexplicably similar to Chen. They all showed their disapproval upon hearing her words. Xiao said, Where do we share the money between you and me in our family? The money for selling embroidery was supposed to be handed over to my mother to handle all the household matters. Besides, if it weren't for you, how could we get our handkerchiefs sold in town? You're such a silly girl, you're getting more and more talkative. You has a carefree personality, and like Shen Minchu, although she is in the countryside, she is pampered by her family and does not value money and possessions. At this moment, seeing this group of chattering little ones, I was even happier than knowing that my embroidery was making money. I took the initiative to come and take care of these little ones. Without saying a word, Chen arranged to tidy up the yard. Although he scolded Shen Minchu for not consulting with his family, he carefully managed a corner and instructed Shen Minchu. When your father comes back, go chop down some trees, make a fence for this place, and build a thatched nest. From now on, chickens will be raised here. After speaking, he began to worry about the duck and said, "This duck is a hydrophilic animal. Where do we have live water here? You girl, you don't even discuss things with your family. It's really frustrating." Shen Minchu leaned forward and affectionately hugged Chen's arm, smiling at her pleasantly. "Mother, I've already thought of it. It's a pity that we don't use our sink anymore. Why don't we just pour water into it and let the ducks drink it? It happens to separate the chickens and ducks. I've heard people say this won't make the chickens and ducks sick easily." Chen helplessly poked her forehead and laughed at her, calling her a ghost spirit. "This matter has been settled, and we will only wait for Shen's father to come back and build a shed for the chickens and ducks, and then start the Shen family's breeding plan." Putting down the chicken and duck seedlings, Shen Minchu entered the room with the three of them and took out 181 and the embroidery patterns he had bought, handing them to Qiao and Yu. The handkerchief was sold for 31, a total of 181. I also bought embroidered thread and red painted patterns. The two sister.in.law took a look and it was quite satisfactory. Qiao and Yu glanced at each other with a surprised expression on their faces. How could this handkerchief be worth this price? I'm afraid you didn't make up for it yourself, did you? Shen Minchu had already figured out his words on the way, and when she asked, he smiled and said, "The shop really can't offer a good price. I didn't want the embroidery products of my two sister.in.law to be sold at a low price, so I didn't want to sell them. Fortunately, I met a merchant who wanted to accept some unique embroidery products from our local area. Why should the two sister.in.law underestimate themselves? Their skills are on par with the embroidery girls in the town." Shen Minchu's words are not at all heartfelt. The mall does indeed have a strong preference for pure natural game and handicrafts. Why not be considered a wealthy businessman? The merchant also said that he will come to Xianyang town again in the future, and when there is a handkerchief, he can go find him to collect it. At this point, the road ahead was well paved, and she saved herself from looking for reasons time and time again. She handed the money bag to the two of them and said, "Sisters-in-law, please order." Xiao and Yu didn't discuss it, so they first handed Shen Minchu 31 and then handed the money bag containing 151 to Chen. With a smile, they said, "Buying embroidery thread and patterns is something I asked you to do. Since you have put in effort, how can you get the money? As for the remaining money, it's better for my mother to take it." Shen Minchu declined, so he had to accept it. Chen didn't care about the more than 101, but his daughter.in.law and daughter paid tribute to her together, and she was very willing to treasure it. So in the eyes of the three people who were looking forward to it, Chen put the money bag in the cabinet, and waved his hand. He decided to make the best egg cakes at night to reward three great meritorious officials. The usual laughter and cheers from the Shen family made the villagers envious. At this moment, Shen's father also returned, holding a pair of water shoes in his hand, and approached the entrance of the hall with a puzzled expression. When Chen saw him coming over, he explained the whole story once. Shen's father also smiled and praised the three of them, rolling up his sleeves and preparing to cut some wood to build a chicken and duck shelter. He said sourly, "The four of you get along well, father and son. We look like outsiders. The four of them couldn't help but laugh at the words. After the family laughed and laughed, Chen picked up the water brought back by Shen's father and prepared to tidy it up and stew a soup. Upon seeing it, Shen Minchu's eyes lit up instantly and he quickly stepped forward to take a set of water. For the ancients, these water were difficult to handle and inevitably had a smell when made, which he despised very much. In fact, the most suitable way to make braised dishes is to use water. However, using meat chunks cannot show the superiority of braised ingredients. Shen Minchu pointed to the several cloth bags he brought back and smiled. "Mom, I've come up with a new way of eating these days. Why don't you try it with me?" Chen couldn't refuse her daughter's reasonable request, so she smiled and agreed. Chapter 9. Braised Flavor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chen is tidying up the drain in the kitchen. She is an expert in kitchen work, and with these worrying ingredients, she also has a way of handling them. We need to wash the water clean first, then boil the blood foam in the water. During this time, Shen Minchu went into the house and took out the dry ingredients given by the old woman today. She used to be conflicted about how to properly bring out the ingredients, but today she found out that there were already ingredients at this time. However, through Chueying, she roughly understood that most of the ingredients in this era are medicinal and have not yet been studied for their consumption methods. She sorted the large materials, assembled them according to her own understanding, pulled out a clean piece of cloth to wrap it up, tied it tightly with a rope, and handed it over to Chen. Although Chen was puzzled, he did not doubt his daughter's confident appearance. Following Shen Minchu's instructions, she started cooking and immediately put in a lot of sugar. Feeling heartbroken, she gasped for breath. Shen Minchu also felt a bit helpless. The ancient sugar was too expensive, and the most expensive one in this pot was probably the sugar used for stir-frying. No wonder Chen, who had always favored her, also felt so sorry about it. Shen Minchu gritted his head and instructed Chen to proceed with the next steps. After the processed ingredients were added to the pot and began to marinate, Chen's worried expression slowly disappeared and turned into a strong exclamation. This is too fragrant." Shen Minchu smiled slightly. It was time to give the ancients a modern shock. As a modern person living in the era of information explosion, although she cannot compare her literary talent with that of a reader, the fragmented knowledge accumulated through watching short videos and miscellaneous books in her daily life cannot be underestimated. In the Great Xia dynasty, where cooking techniques and cooking thinking were quite limited, the theoretical knowledge and recipes she had about cooking should have enabled her to stand undefeated. Shen's father also walked in from the door at this moment. He put down his tools and wanted Shen Minchu to take a look at the chicken and duck shack. At this moment, he was also attracted by the aroma of braised meat. He approached the stove and glanced into the pot. His surprised expression suddenly couldn't hide. "Surprisingly, this smells like pig water. It's also so fragrant." Most high-ranking officials and dignitaries do not like pig offal, and even ordinary people who buy meat for the first time should choose fatty pork belly or pork neck meat. On weekdays, pig offal is usually carried as a gift to old customers or brought home by Shen Fu himself. These difficult-to-handle parts are usually difficult to make delicious. Barely dealing with the odor is enough, but I didn't expect to use Shen Minchu's recipe to make them so fragrant. Just smelling them would make one's fingers skip a beat. I'm planning to call this dish braised, and the other ingredients can also be made in the same way. Dad thinks this dish might be sold at a higher price in town. Shen Minchu's eyebrows and eyes curved with a smile. Upon hearing this, Shen's father was taken aback and immediately began to think seriously. This flavor naturally doesn't worry about selling, but I don't know exactly how you're going to set a price for this braised flavor. Shen Minchu had already thought about this issue. Before returning to the village, she had visited all the restaurants in the town for the same reason. However, at this moment, she deliberately kept it mysterious and smiled slightly. Dad will taste it himself later, then let's talk about it with my daughter. Shen's father laughed, but the little girl even learned to play mystery. Chen Shi also baked egg cakes with the help of their father and daughter's talking skills. The smell of flour and eggs was almost equal to that of braised meat. Shen Minchu secretly praised, she really found the right person. Chen's craftsmanship is sure to fully unleash her ideas. Here, Chen cut the egg cakes into pieces. Shen's father also picked out a large intestine that Chen had cut in advance from the marinated water, as well as several pieces of pig liver, and cut a braised plate. Together, they brought a sumptuous dinner into the hall. Xiao and Yu also walked out of the room, constantly praising each other, this is too similar. Both of us were unintentionally embroidered in the room. The family relationship of the Shen family is truly harmonious. Regardless of which household in the village, one would not let their mother.in-law and father.in-law work in the kitchen, while the two daughter.in-law hide in the room to embroider flowers. However, this is the norm in the Shen family. After everyone took their seats, Shen Fu took the lead in using chopsticks to pick up a piece of braised large intestine and brought it into the mouth. The salty and refreshing taste, along with the chewy texture, was very appetizing. Good, good, this taste is no less impressive than drunken heavenly fragrance. Shen's father wished he could have a small glass of wine at hand, and drink it beautifully. At this moment, a pair of tender white catkins pinched his ears, and Chen changed her usual gentleness. When did you go to drunken Tianxiang? Who did you go with? Where did you get the money? Shen's father didn't mind Chen's occasional appearance as a lion in the east of the river, and the 8-foot-tall man didn't mind his daughter and daughter.in-law laughing on the side. At this moment, he accompanied his wife carefully and said, "It's Tai Guan, Tai Guan. He wanted his son to learn how to kill pigs from me, so he invited me to dinner. We just ordered 2 small dishes and didn't touch a drop of wine." Chen withdrew her hand and Shen's father felt relieved when he saw that she didn't have any anger on her face. He quickly changed the topic and said, "Now you can talk about it clearly. How are you planning to price it?" At this moment, the mother.in-law and daughter.in-law all tasted the braised food and agreed that the taste was excellent. They all looked at Shen Minchu with hopeful expressions. Shen Minchu didn't show any interest, he carefully explained his thoughts. This braised meat can be made not only with water, but also with pork. However, the price of water is low, and if it were to be replaced with meat, the cost would be higher. This time, I plan to first talk to the local restaurant about the supply issue. If we can negotiate, we will only consider the production and transportation issues, which will reduce labor costs. If we cannot negotiate, we will sell it ourselves first, so my preliminary pricing is 2 options. The more Shen Minchu spoke, the clearer her thinking became. Compared to doing business, cooking was still more proficient in her old profession. The first is to sell to restaurants, where the daily supply of meat and water is at the rated quantity. Meat costs 100 won per kilogram, while water costs 80 won per kilogram. Secondly, if we can't talk about the supply from the restaurant, I'll set up my own stall to sell. The meat costs 150 won per kilogram, and buying 1 kilogram will give half a kilogram of water as a gift. Shen's father's price for selling meat has always been transparent and open. Except for the more expensive ones like wuhua, everything else is around 20 won per kilogram. Water cannot be sold at a high price, and sometimes a pair of 30.40 gene water can be sold for 60.70 won. Therefore, even if the cost of making braised dishes is increased, such pricing is still profitable. Shen's father is the only one in the family who can get involved in business and has the most ability to consider this pricing. After listening to Shen Minchu's 2 proposals, he couldn't help but nod secretly. At first glance, this braised meat is not the food that ordinary people would put on the table every day. It is not a big deal to set a slightly higher price. This price not only enhances the style of the product, but also does not become too expensive and unattainable, leading to unsold options. Ordinary people want to have a tooth festival on weekdays, and they can spend 100 won to buy some home wine. Okay, let's give it a try according to the clear idea. Anyway, Dad can guarantee that there won't be less meat you use to explore the way. Shen's father treated his two sons with a strict fatherly image of both grace and power, but in front of his younger daughter, he was a steadfast and compassionate father. Chen and her two sisters-in-law also agreed that there are still some days before the autumn harvest, and Shen Miao, the second brother of the Shen family, has passed the hospital trial. Currently, the family prioritizes Shen Minchu's braised meat business and raising chickens and ducks. Chapter 10. Supply of braised flavors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The current plan has been determined, and the whole family needs to do things step by step. However, Chen Shi does not agree with Shen Minchu going to the restaurant alone to discuss the supplier matter. As a young lady who has not yet left the court, your public appearance is second to none. However, your personal safety is a concern for your mother. Whether it's waiting for your two brothers to return from the county or waiting for your father to have time, it's really not possible for your sister.in.law to accompany you. In short, you can't do this alone. Upon hearing this, Xiao and Yu glanced at each other, feeling that their mother.in.law's words were reasonable. Yu spoke up and said, "Then I'll accompany Chu Chu on a trip first. I'll just be able to go to the town and see the world. If sister.in.law wants to go, then we'll go together." Xiao is not a native of Shenjiawan, but a daughter of an escort agency in Mingyang County. She and the elder brother of the Shen family were together because they had a romantic relationship. Although they came from an escort agency, Xiao has developed a deep boudoir-like appearance, with a strong personality and dignified demeanor, making it difficult for her to appear in public. Yu's words fulfilled the wishes of both of them. Xiao preferred to learn cooking skills or embroidered handkerchiefs from her mother.in.law at home, while Yu was restless and very willing to go to town with Shen Minchu. Shen Minchu also smiled and said, "All right, Sister Chuiying doesn't go to town every day, and I can't always trouble her. Tomorrow, my dad will bring back a pair of water, 10 pounds of meat, which will be braised overnight and more flavorful the day after tomorrow. Then, my sister.in.law and I will take it to town together." The matter was arranged in this way, and the family's focus was on braised food. After consideration by Chen and Xiao, they decided to divide braised food into two flavors: spicy and non-spicy. They only needed to improve the braising ingredients, one with Sichuan pepper inside and the other without. At this moment, Shen Minchu remembered that she had not yet seen chili peppers in this era, and it seemed that they had not been introduced to the great Xia dynasty for the time being. She couldn't help but support her forehead. It seemed like she needed to go through a step-by-step exploration and slowly take out the things in the mall, not for anything else, just to improve the quality of life. The busy 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Early in the morning, Shen Minchu and Yu Shi sat on Zhao He's ox cart, placing a wooden bucket filled with braised meat between them. 10 pounds of meat were half submerged in the water, and the braised soup weighed about 30 to 40 pounds. The two sat opposite each other, carefully monitoring the road and avoiding any bumps that could cause the soup to spill. Along the way, with caution and the slow swaying speed of the ox cart, the integrity of the braised soup was guaranteed very well when we arrived at the town. The sister.in.law breathed a sigh of relief as they watched the ox cart stop at the entrance of the town. The two rented a small wooden cart at the entrance of the town, placed a wooden bucket on it, and pushed it towards the restaurant. Shen's father originally came from Gaofinyong and wanted to make a wooden cart, but he was in a hurry and didn't know if he would be able to use it in the future. Therefore, he wasn't in a hurry for now. Moreover, renting this small cart now only costs 2 cents a day. It's better to spend money to buy time. Aunt and sister.in.law first pushed a small cart to the entrance of Zuitianxiang. The two exchanged a glance, and Shen Minchu led them in first. As it was not a meal and there were not many people in the restaurant, the waiter greeted him and said, "How many people, sir? What would you like to eat?" Shen Minchu waved his hand, indicating that he was not here for dinner, and then said, "Where is the shopkeeper?" The waiter's expression faded as soon as he heard the attentiveness. He looked up and down at Shen Minchu and saw that although she had a beautiful appearance, she was still dressed in cloth and a delicate hairpin. He felt a little contemptuous in his heart, but he patiently answered her. The shopkeeper is naturally here. Please wait a moment, my guest. After finishing speaking, she turned her head and left. Shen Minchu didn't care about the negligence of her assistant. After all, she had achieved her goal and everything was easy to say when she saw the shopkeeper. Not long after, a middle-aged man walked into the lobby from behind and arched his hand at Shen Minchu. I am the shopkeeper of Drunken Tianxiang, my surname is Zhou. What do you want me to do, sir? Shen Minchu smiled slightly upon seeing the situation and said, I want to discuss a business deal with the shopkeeper. At this moment, with the help of his staff, you had already pushed the wooden cart into the lobby. In the corner of the lobby, he opened the lid of the wooden bucket filled with braised meat, and suddenly a strange smell wafted into everyone's noses. The business acumen of shopkeeper Zhou, who has been doing business for many years, naturally reveals the intentions of Shen Minchu and his wife. He looked up at Shen Minchu and saw her smile slightly, making a gesture of invitation. The three of them sat down, but the shopkeeper Zhou didn't take the initiative to speak. The old god was watching their movements, and Yusher felt a little anxious. Shen Minchu shook his head slightly, indicating that Yusher should be calm and not impatient. Turning to the shopkeeper Zhou, Shen Minchu smiled slightly and said, Zui Tianxiang is the oldest and most well-known restaurant in Xiangyang town. Naturally, there are some old diners willing to visit frequently, but I heard that the Qingfeng Tower in Yangjun is ready to open its branch in Xiangyang town. If the shopkeeper Zhou doesn't seize the opportunity to seize the market in Xiangyang town and be overwhelmed by the Qingfeng Tower army, he will have no power to turn the tide. Upon hearing this, shopkeeper Zhou also smiled. However, there was not much anxiety in his smile that was frightened by Shen Minchu's words. He still had the presence of an old god and said, Miss, do you mean there is a way for me to fight against Qingfeng Tower for Drunken Tianxiang? Upon hearing this, Shen Minchu breathed a sigh of relief. Manager Zhou expressed his intention to cooperate by saying this, and his attitude was nothing more than a desire to lower the price, which is quite understandable. If she says so much and shopkeeper Zhou doesn't let go or show any intention of cooperation, she will have no confidence in her heart. That's exactly why I came to collaborate with Manager Zhou today. There's no need for confrontation, and I'm just here to help Manager Zhou. I just hope Manager Zhou can understand that it's not easy for us to support our family. Shopkeeper Zhou raised his eyebrows. Although Shen Minchu did not directly admit this, it was an indirect acceptance of his words. He set his gaze on the wooden barrel that had already been opened. Seeing this, Shen Minchu knew there was a play. Can I borrow it from Manager Zhou's kitchen? Shopkeeper Zhou nodded without hesitation. Shen Minchu picked up a plate, picked out a piece of braised meat and a piece of water from the bucket, and cut it into small pieces in the kitchen. He then poured a spoonful of braised soup on the cut braised meat in front of shopkeeper Zhou, and placed it in front of shopkeeper Zhou, smiling slightly. Please appreciate Mr. Zhou's face and taste one or two. Shopkeeper Zhou had long been interested in what was in the barrel, and upon hearing this, he responded with all his might. He picked up a piece of braised meat with chopsticks and put it into his mouth. Shen Minchu was not surprised to see the satisfied expression on Manager Zhou's face. She believed that anyone who was not a vegetarian could not refuse this novel and delicious braised meat. Shopkeeper Zhou tasted a piece of meat and a piece of water respectively. To his surprise, the taste of the water was much better than that of the meat, because it was handled very well and had no peculiar smell. Coupled with its chewy taste, it was no less impressive than the top dish of Zui Tianxiang. He suppressed the urge to continue eating and put down his chopsticks, with a much stronger smile on his face. Miss, this dish is indeed unique. I have never seen it before. How are you planning to do this business with Zhou? Shen Minchu was very satisfied with the answer and took out the prepared speech. This dish is a secret recipe passed down in my family, called braised flavor. It is divided into 2 flavors. Spicy and non-spicy, and there are also 2 varieties. Meat and water. The price of meat is 150 won per kilogram, while water is 100 won per kilogram. We are responsible for supplying it, while Zui Tianxiang is only responsible for selling it.